intercepted a missile that was fired from Yemen. So that is just one of the latest lines as to what is happening at the moment. Let's now talk to former US Ambassador and President Emeritus of the Middle East Policy Council, Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley. Gina, good to talk to you again. As Saeed was saying there, it's, of course, more international pressure on Israel with regards to what it's doing in Gaza. However, the US is not signing up as well. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you so much for having me. He's right. The U.S. has not signed on to that statement, but we have had indications in the last several days of growing impatience from the U.S. side. We've been here before. In President Biden, President Obama, President Clinton, President Bush before have all from time to time lost patience with the prime minister and his actions. But President Trump has proved that he's willing to use leverage when he believes it is necessary. And the fact that the growing humanitarian crisis, the credibility of war crimes even, is increasingly seeping into the U.S. consciousness. You have people on the right, from evangelical groups, talking about the deaths of civilians in Gaza, along with that bombing of a church in Gaza and the attacks in the West Bank, bringing greater attention. The bombing of Syria, not seen as helpful, surprised the president. He wants that Peace Prize, and the prime minister is not helping him get it, not with regard to Gaza and not more broadly in the region. President Trump said a ceasefire was likely to come within 2 weeks, and that was 2 weeks ago. So he is not happy. Certainly that message is being given, but whether he's going to stand firm on it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the dilemma, isn't it? Because, as you say, the US has expressed their frustration and their, the difficulty that they're in support of Israel. We've got, the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy in Parliament talking about the inhumane killing of Gaza civilians who are just simply trying to get water or critical medical aid or food.
Yes.
Really, it's on our screens daily. And this is the position the US is in, isn't it? To what extent can it remain where it is? Is it behind the scenes putting lots of pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu? That is the assumption.
Certainly, there are firm discussions happening behind the scenes. You've seen language even in public. The press secretary used the term brutal in describing what's going on in the Gaza Strip. Many would argue that's an understatement, but it is a very strong word. Special Envoy Barak has described recent Israeli actions as confusing, unhelpful. So these are clear indications, and we know that the president called after the bombing of the church in Gaza and said, quote, wrap it up. So we see that the pressure is there even publicly, which always means it's much stronger privately.
So what do you think might happen next? Because, this situation where Israel has controlled, with the United States, the distribution of aid within Gaza, since the beginning of that, which has been happening for weeks now, we have seen this situation become more and more dire, and the numbers going up and up, the numbers of people who are being killed, who are simply trying to get what they need. What's your take on how long we'll be in this position we're in now? Obviously, the ceasefire negotiations are ongoing, but they seem to be making no progress at this point.
Certainly very little progress. The scenes that certainly are even more apparent in the region, we're seeing some of it in the West, are indeed unconscionable. And yet we allow it. That is the reality. And it's not just the United States. There are other partners in Europe, as you know, and around the world, and even in the region, who have tolerated, who have quietly helped because they understood the Israeli position, or there were some of the Israeli goals that were shared more broadly. So we're all going to bear responsibility for this, for what we will eventually see in the Gaza Strip. And of course, the Israeli government doesn't allow international press in. So we don't know and won't know until all of this is over. I think that there is the hope that the pressure from the United States, but it's going to take more than the United States to put pressure on the government of Israel to say this is beyond the pale. This is far too many deaths we see. We cannot hide any longer. But the negotiations continue in Doha. Hamas refuses to accede to the Israeli uh, demands of complete surrender and presumably to be marched out of the Gaza Strip. It's unclear. They have largely lost control of the Gaza Strip. There are gangs going on, other groups that are in control of part of the Gaza Strip. So to say that Hamas is in control is not correct. They've killed most of the leadership. People are fighting in pockets here and there, but that is to be expected when so many have been killed, displaced, abused, etc. So on it goes until the prime minister decides to declare victory. And we'll see if the U.S. government, particularly President Trump, he's seeing these pictures, he's seeing the children.
All right.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gina, sorry to
No problem.
interrupt you, but we do have to move on to other stories now. But we do appreciate your time once again. Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley there with her take on some of the latest developments in the Middle East.